Montreal is an old city. We've got a lot of heritage in this city. And with that, that means heritage buildings, historic buildings that you'd think we'd want to do everything to keep them protected. But, you look at the headlines from the last little while in this city. We had that fire, that tragic fire in Old Montreal. 7 people lost their lives in that fire in Old Montreal. And then, of course, we had the fire at the Monastère du Bumbaru, right? That historic building on Sherbrooke Street that caught fire. And then on Tuesday night, there was another fire, yet another fire inside a heritage building, this time at the Trinity Anglican Memorial Church, the old church in NDG on Sherbrooke Street. And boy, I used to live right near there. I spent 10 years in NDG, basically around the corner from that historic building. So we have story after story after story in the city of heritage buildings, historic buildings that have caught on fire. What are we doing to protect this history, Montreal's heritage? Let's go to Dinu Bumbaru, Director of Policy at Heritage Montreal. Dinu, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
And of course, it should be noted that the fire at Monastère du Bumbaru, right, of course, affected your organization so much as that was your home, right?
Yeah, our home was just below the chapel, so.
Yeah.
Whereas other, in particular, the dwellers, the people who lived in the building, because there was housing, the housing co-op and pensioners' home, suffered a lot in very heavy fire damage. We had mostly water damage. Anyway.
When you open up your laptop or you slide your iPhone unlocked and you go to your news sites and you see the story, another fire at a historic building, what goes through your mind?
Well, a bit like you said in the intro, we know there's a lot of historic building in Montreal. Actually, the city of Montreal estimates there's about 85,000 of them. So it's a huge number. We're not talking of the eventual ancestral home or very, very ancient teams. We have these very old buildings, but we have a lot of buildings like this, the church that you mentioned, the Trinity Anglican Memorial Church, is from 1922. It's following the First World War, and it's a memorial to those soldiers who lost their life. But it's more recent. It's 20th century. But it means we have a lot. And how do we address that? Hazard will exist. In that case, the case of that church, there seems to have been a source of arson or maybe vandalism and so on. So it's really an issue of broadening the spectrum of the protection measure we have. Typically we've been addressing the issue that mean developer are the source of threat. But we know that, accidents happen. In the Bumbaru, it's likely this is what occurred. In this case, it's vandals. Vandals don't apply for a permit, So we need to have this. And it in a way, it also addresses the issue of religious heritage, because this is a church. We know the Anglican diocese is in the process of closing down some of its ancient buildings. This one in NDG, St. John the Evangelist, just behind Place des Arts. The red roof church is closed now. It's a wonderful interior, and it's not just the presence of the roof of the outside; it's also the inside. So it's an enhanced heritage challenge. But today we have also technology. Perhaps we could put some sensors, have some kind of way to monitor and follow up on things. Is there training, for instance, for the local police to keep an eye? Sometimes a lot of effort can be invested in small things like prevention. It doesn't have to be heavy duty sometimes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about prevention here, because from my perspective, I actually live pretty close to the old Viger Hotel, which was just demolished, right? It was just demolished, right? And I remember over the last 3-4 years seeing fire trucks there on a couple of occasions, right?
Yeah.
And it almost seems like this is partially, and I know it's not by design, but it almost seems like it is by design. Let these things catch on fire so we can get rid of them at times. You know what I mean?
I know. So, in the case of the hotel you mentioned, actually, it's the city, the borough, actually, who had to order the demolition because the situation was becoming a public safety hazard. But you're right. The city of Montreal has had some bylaws. Even since the period of Jean Drapeau, there has been something starting to control demolition and to put fine on lack of maintenance and so on. But the regulation, the bylaws have been mostly inoperative. You can't apply them because they're too complicated or they're not thought. They're just thought to be adopted, not implemented. But right now, actually, there was a hearing a couple of weeks ago at the City Council. The Commission is looking into this to upgrade substantially the bylaws so that those owners actually let their building fall apart, and this would include church owners also, would be exposed to paying a hefty fine, going up to $250,000 if it's in the case of a heritage building like the Trinity Memorial Church that we're talking about. That might actually chill down some negligence. We'll have to see how it's implemented, but this is an encouraging first move. There has to be inventory. We need to better know and perhaps include in the fire patrol and the police patrol just a little watch on some of those properties and make sure that there's a benevolent eye, a caring eye on them.
Yeah, overseeing these buildings. We're with Dinu Bumbaru, Director of Policy at Heritage Montreal. Dino, let's just talk about churches for a second here, right? Because, they're often very beautiful, historic old buildings, but we know the church business is not a growth business right now,
No.
So, you have these structures that are just so unique. Hopefully they've got other purposes in life eventually, but you just know that if you look at just current trends, there are going to be more and more churches that go empty or that are abandoned or that close down. So how do we handle all that right now?
Well, you know what? We've managed to be very, in our leadership, we've been very effective in putting closing our eyes on the issue. I mean, I recall being at the meeting at the city 25 years ago when people, professional, planners, people with a thinking mind said, this is coming before us and it's not going to take very long before we have this problem on our hands. What did the city do? Well, they did some few things, but not enough. And what did the government of Quebec do? Well, they did a lot. I'm talking to you from the little garden behind Christ Church Cathedral. That very nice little oasis in downtown?
Yes.
Well, in 1995, there was an agreement signed in the cathedral between the Quebec government and a series of congregations so that they can share a funding project. And this has been quite unique in the world where you have the Catholic, the Protestant, and the Jewish community working together with the state on the issue of heritage. But it's only recently that they've started to put money on repurposing these buildings, so that admitting that they will need to find new way to earn their living, if you want to use the expression, that you try to accompany communities in finding those ways. These are beautiful buildings outside and inside. Outside they're a signal of the community. The spires, the architecture has even a landscape value because it defines what's around it somehow. But there's the interior, which is very significant and often has some beautiful artwork, sculptures, the organs, and so on. So you need to think about it. And it's only recently that we've been starting to do that. So it's not like people have not been warned. And we should not forget, did you see passing yesterday the announcement that the Villa Maria estate is going to be put for sale?
I did see that. Yeah, that's right.
That's a huge thing. And we're talking not only of a great historic architecture, we're also looking at the chunk of landscape. It's a green space. So in our view, many of these communities are seeking the most bucks for their real estate. And that's unfortunate because these are church properties that have received a lot of tax breaks over decades, if not centuries.
Well, to me, I just don't want to see fires, and I want to see I want to see back at this stuff.
Guess what? We're exactly on the same wave.
Yeah.
But I suggest that we think also maybe the time to find the right solution that will last. It takes time, to repurpose something.
Yeah. Well,
in the meanwhile, can we have transitory occupation so that we can have somebody living, using it for a proper way? It may not be the permanent one, but it will not do damage, and it will keep an eye on the building.
And not let these buildings go up in smoke. Dinu,
Absolutely.
we have to
Absolutely.
leave it. We have to leave it there. It's always great talking to you.
Thank you very much.
That's,
and keep strolling and watching.
Thanks so much. I will do that. Dinu Bumbaru is the Director of Policy at Heritage Montreal.